Hey, Eagle fans, it's EaglefanKarl. Welcome to the 2019 Eagles season. Going to be with you again for the whole season, giving my thoughts on what I think about the games, predictions beforehand, reactions after. But to start off the season, I thought we'd do a little season preview, and I thought I'd do something a little different this year. So this past Saturday, I had a conversation with my two cousins, Craig and Steven, and we went for about an hour and a half talking about all different types of things related to the Eagles. And what I've done is I've broken that into three different videos. There's going to be one on offense, one on defense, and then one that deals with predictions for the season. So here's the first in that series of videos on the Eagles offense for the 2019 season. I want to welcome two guests with me today. My brothers from other mothers, but the same grandmother. My cousins, Craig and Steven. You've seen both these guys, I think, on videos I've done in the past if you've watched my channel for a while. And I thought it'd be fun to sort of do a season preview with not just me talking, but having some conversation with some fellow Birds fans. To allow for a little bit of fun, and hopefully then we'll be able to maybe break down exactly what we expect for this season and sort of what we think is going to happen, and hopefully that'll maybe enlighten us a little more than just me yakking at you for 10 minutes like I usually do. So what we're doing is we're breaking this down into the three phases of the game, so to speak: offense, defense, and the all-important predictions. So let's go ahead and start with some offense. How good do you guys think this offense is going to be this year?
It's hard to tell because, I think every question is going to have like a pause at the beginning. I think in a way nobody really knows, but I think it's going to be like a 60% like guessing game for the most part until the games really start because nobody really knows. But they have so many wide receivers that look on paper are really good. We've seen two already that are going to be starters. The running backs, I'll discuss more of a running back later because I think I have one for the breakout star. But and of course Wentz, as long as he stays healthy and the line is returning. So offense I think is on paper ready to go.
Yeah,
just,
I completely agree with it. And it's scary, I think, how good this offense could be. And that hopefully sets up the defense then, which we'll talk about the defense later. But, I think it really could be scary good how good the offense is going to be with all the weapons they've got. And, of course, all this is caveated on if Wentz is healthy. We've seen the backup quarterback situation, and, we can talk about that a little bit later. But, hopefully we don't have to really worry about, what's going on with that too much. But I really think that, this offense is poised to be really explosive this year. Steven, you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, and I think the reason that I'm so optimistic is because there's depth at every skill position. So it's not like we're relying on one major skill player that we're like, this is the best wide receiver, but we have nobody else.
Yeah.
We have depth at every skill position. So even if the injury bug hits, we're not, I don't want to say we're immune to it, but we're strong against injuries in skill positions. Even on the offensive line, I've been impressed with Vaitai kind of moving from being tackle to being guard, and just we have strong backup offensive linemen that I think in every position really we have such depth that even if one or two guys go down that are like key star, everyone knows their names, other guys will be able to fill in and do well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's the depth is something that I think the rest of the league wishes they had the problems we had. I forget. I was listening to I think it was Missinelli talking yesterday to the guy who covers the training camp, and he's talking about most teams aren't worried about who their fifth wide receiver is going to be, but that's sort of where we're at right now. It's like who exactly is going to be the ultimate backup? Who's going to be that last guy? And,
yeah.
No one's worried about. We all sort of know where everybody else is going to be in the pack.
And even one and two at all those positions.
Yeah.
Not even just one, but one and two.
Right.
So
we're pretty stacked. The question I guess really comes down to is how concerned should we be about the offense, because we haven't seen it that much this preseason. I mean, it's kind of a joke. Wentz isn't going to take a snap in the preseason, obviously now. You had some of the other guys finally get in the game Thursday night, which, by the way, consider your side. I know, Craig, you barely even watch preseason, if at all. And, Steven, you suffer through it. But I got to tell you, the one thing that's worse is when you live out of state and you live in a state where they're playing the Eagles, so they play the local broadcast. I'd listen to the Ravens announcers talk about that game the other night. And it was just, at halftime, I'm like, I can't do this anymore. I can't do it anymore. And it doesn't matter because, like, the guys that you care about aren't even playing in the game. Gone are the days when, at least if you had the third preseason game, you knew you were going to see the starters for a half, maybe even into the third quarter. Forget that. That's not happening anymore. And, I think there's a large percentage of teams that aren't playing their quarterbacks at all in the preseason. It seems to be the growing trend. So how concerned should we be about that? Should we be worried that we haven't seen Wentz at all this year? And the last time we saw him, he was playing on a broken back?
I mean, go ahead, Steven.
I would say I'm a little bit concerned until I see it. And the thing that keeps kind of haunting me was last year when we picked up Golden Tate and Mike Groh said we have a hard time figuring out how to get him into the offense. And I'm just thinking, are they going to have a hard time? Because now they have great skill players at every position. And on paper, like we've been saying, this could be epic. But until I see them actually make it work, I'm a little bit concerned, but not majorly concerned. I just want to see it.
Good. What are you going to say, Craig?
I think, personally, for our team personally, it's a issue because you want to see your guys get into the game and get used to it and get ready for a real game. But since, Steven, you guys both were saying that it's a growing trend, so I think every team is kind of doing the same thing where when you're playing the first team in week 1, they're going to have the same situation where their starters aren't playing. So you kind of both are starting a preseason game at week 1. But your individual team, you do want to see those guys kind of get a few reps and just get going again, because they always say that first hit is always the worst hit. So you don't want your quarterback going into game 1, getting sacked the first play and not ready for any kind of actual gameplay, and then maybe pull something or just not be ready,
Mm-hmm.
So I think it does help to have them in there just a little bit, but of course everything comes down to.
Yeah, I think everyone thinks it's brilliant now because no one's getting hurt. But if we lose that first game to Washington, everyone's going to say, "Oh, you should have played him in the preseason."
Right.
That's going to be the issue. Is everyone's going to be saying that what good did it do if you're going to lose that game?
All right.
That's a great point, though, Craig. I hadn't thought about that before, and it feels like we're kind of putting ourselves behind the 8 ball, but every team is doing that. So we're kind of all starting out at the same spot. So that's a great point.
Another thing I've heard some of the analysts say, which I think is very true, it's how much does the beginning of the season really matter that much? I mean, yeah, obviously you want to win and lose every game, but you look at a team like New England, who it's not unaccustomed for them to start 1-2, and everyone starts talking about, oh, the Patriots are done, and then lo and behold, in December they're 12-4 and have home field advantage in the playoffs. And it's okay, well, I guess the 1-2 didn't matter that much. And so I think a lot of people are overreacting about how the beginning of the season can go. But when you do start off with a division opponent, you don't really want to drop that game. And obviously we'll get into predictions later, but I really hope that, it's, not a situation where we're really regretting what we're talking about and people are making mistakes that are going to end up costing us big games. Given how good this, before we made this video, full disclosure to everyone, I had sent around questions to Craig and Steven that I thought we could talk about, and I asked them if they had any questions that they wanted to talk about. And Craig brought up a good point, and how good all these wide receivers are. His question is, will the wide receivers hate each other by the end of the year and be weightlifting on their front lawn? Obviously reminiscent of Terrell Owens back in the day getting upset and doing the weightlifting on his front yard. But, I mean, there does become some of that, especially with the story that came out last year about Wentz, and, some of the people were unhappy that I guess he was targeting Ertz too much and stuff like that. You know, does any of that concern you, that the guys are going to start becoming jealous if one guy is really taking everything over and they're not getting their I mean, you do have some guys that have some personalities, shall we say, and the guys like Deshaun Jackson. Are you worried about that, or you think everybody's just isn't going to care as long as we're winning?
I think realistically that as long as the offense is explosive and they're actually doing stuff and everything, I think that everybody's be okay. If they're running the ball more than they're passing, it's like 3rd and 8, and they like try to do like a screen play. You know, that'll get all these wide receivers. I don't think anybody will be throwing their head into a kicking practice. So I think we'll be okay.
Does that concern you at all, Steven?
I mean, we have such strong veteran leadership on the team, on both sides of the ball. I think that'll keep that in check. And Doug Peterson's just done an epic job with controlling the locker room and making it be a place that people want to play. So I don't think it'll be a problem. But if we start to lose some games, it could snowball and get real ugly real fast.
That's the one thing that always concerns me about that kind of a situation. Everybody, you know, the perfect antidote to all of this is winning.
Right.
But if you get into a situation and you roll off a 3-game losing streak or something like that, it can start going downhill pretty fast.
Yep.
So hopefully we don't have to worry about that. But there is a part of the schedule that I'm a little worried about. We'll talk about later when we're talking about predictions. All right. So the next question, I didn't do a video on the draft just because the way sort of life went this year. I just didn't get around to it, so I just decided to take some time off from doing the videos. So I didn't get a chance to talk about the draft. Andre Dillard, obviously the first-round draft pick, offensive tackle, slated to be the ultimate replacement to Jason Peters, who's a Hall of Famer. Do we think Dillard's going to play for any extended period? So I guess this really comes down to, do we think Jason Peters is going to stay healthy for the whole season? I'm not talking about making a cameo at the end of a game where we're up by 30 points or something like that. I'm talking about having to start a game maybe, or something like that. Do you think that's something that we're concerned about? Because I am, only because Peters typically hasn't been able to get through a whole 16-game schedule and staying healthy.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, he's just getting up there in age, and just you can't beat time, and so he's at that point now where he's more of a coach that plays than a player. And he's awesome at it. I mean, I have all the respect in the world for that, and how he handles himself. But he's not. It's near impossible for him to be starting all 16 games or 19 games for us this year.
Yeah, let's hope it's 19.
Yeah, right.
So the question then is, okay, if Dillard does play, does that the follow-up to that then really is, does that concern you, having a rookie protecting the blind side of your, now multi-million-dollar, $30 million a year quarterback?
I think that if they need to, they'll switch guys around. So he might not even he might not play the starting position. They might switch a guy to tackle again, like put Big V out there or something.
I don't know if they're going to do that with Dillard, though. I don't think they're going to want to try and move him around. And I think in the
not move him around, but if he's not ready, I think that they'll just not play him.
There you go. That's a possibility where you slide Vitae back out there, and especially if Brooks is back by that point, he's a little more flexible in terms of where he can play. But yeah, I guess that could be a possibility if Dillard's struggling and Peters is out for any length of time. My concern, I guess what I'm getting to, is my whole concern with that draft pick. I think it's a great draft pick if it works out, but the problem I had with it at the time was you're drafting a guy that you're hoping is not going to have to play his rookie year, and we did have some needs that could have been filled in that first-round draft pick. It's not like we were, I know we have a fairly stacked team, but you didn't address defense at all in the first 2 rounds, and you certainly could have done something to upgrade your defense. You could have drafted a running back in the first round, which obviously we'll get the running back a little bit later. But, there's some things that I think they could have done with that first-round draft pick other than using it on a guy who's basically you're hoping is going to redshirt his rookie year. So that was my one concern with that draft pick. Like I said, ultimately, if he doesn't have to play much this year, or if he does play and he plays well, and then ultimately is, a Pro Bowl caliber left tackle for the rest of his years, that's going to look like a brilliant pick. But I'm just concerned that if it doesn't, or if he struggles this year, you've got yourself set up where this could be a really good year for you, and you've now essentially punted your first-round draft pick. So hopefully that does not come back and bite us. All right. Well, we were sort of talking about a little bit earlier the preseason and the way the preseason goes, and sort of the revolving carousel that's been our backup quarterback situation in terms of what quarterbacks can get hurt this week. And it's been sort of scary. So, all right, make your predictions now for a week and a half from now. Obviously, Wentz is starting against Washington, but who's backup? Who's on the roster but maybe not dressing? Anybody on practice squad? What do you guys think?
Go ahead, Craig.
Well, I was just saying, with them getting Josh McCown, I think he's just pretty much going to be the backup permanently, or at least playing if they have to, and the other guy's just going to. Josh McCown's going to be the backup, and they don't have to go to anybody else.
Let's hope. Let's hope they don't have to go to anybody else. Steven, who's anyone getting cut from this group?
Yeah, Kessler's out, I think.
I think so too.
And they might. I mean, especially after his performance this past week. And then I think they'll just stash Thornton on the practice squad.
You're not worried that some team's going to snatch him up or something like that?
I think, honestly, talking about draft picks, I think that was a wasted pick. They could have, like you said, they could have addressed someone on defense. But I think he played decently against in the second preseason game. But honestly, I think that was a waste of a pick. And I guess they'll probably just, and then the only reason they'll probably keep him on the practice squad is because they put a pick. They spent a pick on him. So
yeah, it was the 5th round, so I'm not going to kill him too much on that because guys that you get in the 5th round are a lot of times sometimes they even struggle to make the team anyway. I know that they want. I mean, at the time, all they had at that point was Sudfeld, so they needed a 3rd quarterback at least. No one knew obviously at that point that what was going to happen with Sudfeld, breaking his wrist and bringing in McCown and all that kind of stuff. So I'm not going to kill him too much on that, but I do hear what you're saying. I think that it would have been nice if they would have been using some of those picks on some other things, and then waiting till later to draft a developmental quarterback is really what you're talking about in Thorson. All right, so talking about quarterbacks, obviously the one guy we don't want to lose to injury is Wentz. Aside from Wentz, who's the one guy you think we can't afford to lose for any extended period of time this year?
Craig should go first since he hasn't revealed his answers yet.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I missed his answer. We don't know Craig's. Craig, who do you think?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. I think it would have been Kels because with being the center, you kind of need that guy to kind of be the general of the whole thing. But I think that they have backups that they could throw in there. I think Ertz is your guy that you don't want to see gone for a long time.
Yeah. Ertz is a good pick. What are you saying, Steven? I know what your answer is.
I went with Kelsey mainly because just his leadership, but then also the way the snaps have gone during the preseason for the backups. I've seen a lot of, and I think actually a lot of the false starts that have happened have been. You'll see a lot of them where, at least a few of them, where everybody moves except for the center, and so which kind of shows you that maybe it was
tells you who the mistake was.
Yeah. And there's been a couple low snaps and things like that. So they don't seem to be real confident in their backup center at this point, and they were still trying to. I think they put Herbig in there for a while, and Wisniewski was doing it, but then he wasn't doing well, so they yanked him out. So I think there's a question mark at backup center.
Yeah, I know Sayamalu can play center too if he needed to. Kelsey's one that really concerns me if he goes down. You look at the Super Bowl year with all the injuries that we had. There was a couple of positions where we didn't have any injuries.
It was the whole team.
Kelsey was one of the guys, though. I mean, he gave the epic speech, but he's the one guy that was able to play the whole season. And I think that consistency on the offensive line, especially when you're talking about the guy who's calling out the blitz pickups and all that kind of stuff, having one constant there is really important. So, yeah, if we lose Kelsey for any extended period, it would concern me. The one guy I'm going to say, which is going to seem kind of crazy because he always does seem to lose time for injury at some point during the season. In the last few years, we haven't had to deal with it because he hasn't been playing for us. But it's Deshaun Jackson. And the reason I say that is you look at the difference between the Super Bowl offense, the Super Bowl year offense in 17 versus last year's offense in 18. We all ripped Torrey Smith for how he seemed to always disappear in crucial times. But he was always there, and he was always a threat to go deep. Last year, they have Mike Wallace, who's going to do a similar role for the team. He's lousy early, and then he gets hurt and misses the rest of the season. And we never had that guy who was going to stretch the field to really open up some of the underneath stuff to the tight ends, to the running backs, the running game period. And I think it really showed. And Deshaun Jackson obviously is playing that role this year. So if Deshaun Jackson goes down for any extended period of time, if he's missing a game here or there because of a hammy or something, I think you could probably get through that. But if he misses any extended period, I think it really concerns me as to what's going to happen with this team because of what it could do to the other positions. So that's the guy that I think that would concern me also. I agree, though, with Kelsey. With Ertz, I think anytime you lose a guy who's, a definitive Pro Bowler, you got to be concerned about that. But I think we do have, like you said, we've got the backup with Goddard that I think that, he could be a guy who steps in if you needed to. But that's an unknown. So, yeah, I'd rather take the known of Ertz over the unknown of Goddard if we wanted. So we'll then go to that sort of I'll go ahead and talk about my breakout player on offense. My breakout player on offense is going to be Dallas Goedert. I think Goddard's the guy who's going to take the next step and really sort of I think he's going to be real important when you get in the red zone packages. And now that he's got another year under his belt with the offense, I think you're really going to start to see him. They'll be able to really use him the way they want to use him. And ultimately, when they're in those sets where they've got Goddard and Ertz out there, you just think about what you could do in a red zone package when you're tight end. You could tight in the offense or tight into the end zone. You can line up Alshon Jeffrey. Alshon Jeffrey, Zach Ertz, Dallas Goedert, Arcega-Whiteside, and pick another tall wide receiver. And it's going to be hard for teams to figure out how you're going to guard all those tall guys.
Basketball.
It's going to make the 50-50 balls a lot easier when you're going to have to put one of your 5'9" cornerbacks up against one of those guys, and good luck picking which one it's going to be. Because I think that's going to be where that sort of size advantage is really going to play a key role. And that's an area where we saw the Eagles did struggle a little bit last year, was in the red zone when they were trying to score. So for that reason, I'm going to say Dallas Goedert, my breakout star for the year. Let's go to Steven. Steven, who's your breakout star?
Would you want me to do Miles Sanders? Or
go ahead. Take Miles Sanders.
All right. My breakout star is going to be Miles Sanders. I think he's going to fill a role that we didn't have last year, and I think he's a complete running back. And I think it's gonna him and Jordan Howard together. I'm so excited about. And, I think that's just gonna be. And Miles Sanders, I think, is gonna be what I've heard people say is not if, but when he takes over as the number one running back. Even though we do running back by committee, but I think he's gonna be good.
No, I agree with that. I think Sanders could really be could have a great season. A lot of times, in terms of rookies, sometimes you're limited in how good you can be in your rookie year. The running back position seems to be the one position on offense where rookies can really have an immediate effect. And I think that's pretty much because hand the ball and you run with it. You don't have to worry about learning routes and all that kind of stuff. The one thing that sort of impressed me in the little bit of preseason I did see was the one blitz pickup that he made. So, that's the big question you always have about running backs coming out of college is how they're going to translate to the passing game in terms of picking up blitzes. But early on, he seems to maybe be picking up on that and seems to be okay with that. So, Craig, do you have a breakout star that you want to talk about? Say it.
Hello?
Say it. Say it. Say it. Say it.
I think my breakout star is going to be Sega Genesis.
Sega Genesis?
Yeah. I think it's going to be hard for him technically because there's just so many wide receivers, and it's going to be just such a big players. But I mean, with the projected greatness that he's supposed to have and everything, I think they're going to throw him in there pretty quick. And I think he'll get a lot of playing time. And even if they double team up, Jeffries or Ertz, I think it'll leave him open and everything. And I think that's even going to open up Miles too. That's why he would probably be my second backup, kind of breakout guy. Because if everybody's playing the passing, it's going to leave the rushing open. And then if everybody's going to play the rushing, then it's going to leave. You know what I mean? If they can get that constant back and forth.
Yeah, keep
a lot of good play. Yeah, you're gonna have a lot of good play actions and everything. Offenses.
Yeah, and I also think you watched the second half, right, Steven?
Yes.
Of the game the other night.
Yes.
The touchdown catch he had was impressive. I mean, it was really a nice catch.
Yes.
That's not a catch that you're going to see a lot of regular NFL receivers make. So I think he certainly has some upside potential. It's how they're able to integrate him into the offense in a rookie year is, I think, the real question with him.
Right.
But I think all in all, we all agree. Thumbs up. We think the offense is going to be doing good this year, right, guys?
Yep.
Yes, absolutely.
All right. Sounds great. So there you have it. Those are our thoughts on the Eagles offense for the 2019 season. Leave your comments below. Let me know what you think. I'm going to be away for the next couple of days, so I'll probably post the second of these videos towards the end of the week, so look for that. Maybe one on Friday and the other on Saturday. Until then, fly Eagles fly.